Every few months we do a video like this, things that need to get buffed, balance patch, hopefuls, etc. So that's what we're doing today. Some of these slides are very similar to the one we did a couple months ago, so I'm going to just breeze by those pretty quickly since it's very similar. I don't want to be too redundant, even though for a lot of these balance patch videos, it's kind of redundant because it's like, buff, how many times am I going to say buff Christina? It's like buff Christina. Okay, so based on developer note from last year, Comptoas themselves mentioned that they wanted to do more frequent balance patches, and so far they have been, which means the next balance patch should be happening soon. They're going much quicker than they used to in previous years. For those of you that are that stopped playing and are coming back to the game, they're doing balance patches much quicker now, and they're actually paying more attention to user feedback. Aside from Christina, not for that one. But everything else, I know we all want our shiny rare toys to be buffed to OP G3 level, but rather than talk about making currently usable units OP, we should be considering making mostly useless units usable and adjusting to the things that are too strong or overabused in the current meta. I don't think that there's things that are too strong. I know some people think that Nana should be nerfed. I don't think that Nana needs to get her stack removed. I think that they decreased the HP of it. That was one way of handling it. But I actually don't think that Nana is too... She has a very high win rate. I'm not going to argue that she doesn't have a very high win rate. Some people think that Riley needs to be nerfed. There's a few... Douglas as well. So there's conversations to be had there. I think that people are getting a little bit better. Like, at first, it's like a culture shock. It's like, how do I actually counter this unit? But the more experience you have, the more you learn how to counter the unit. Sometimes the units just go crazy, and it's like, well, the counter failed. And that's just RNG at its finest. But I think that some of these units that we think are super crazy OP, we just need more experience. A lot of us need more experience countering them. So the more practice you have, the better you will get at doing that. So anyway, also I should mention I applaud Comptoas for a lot of good steps in the right direction, buffing less effective units that needed attention between last patch and the past few overall. They have been doing a better job balancing than they used to do. My feeling towards the patch are less aggressive than in the past because I feel we are in a slightly better balancing spot than in previous years. So, first one that I think is a nerf. He doesn't need a crazy nerf. There are, again, this is one of those situations where I feel people just need to get a little bit more experience. I mean, Douglas is such a hard counter to Oliver. There's Douglas. There's also things like the Dark Elven Ranger is a nice counter to Oliver. Antares is a counter to Oliver. So there are counters there. You just have to get a little bit better at more experience in drafting against Oliver and get a little bit more used to countering him. So he did get very buffed. He got a very significant multiple buffs in the last balance patch, which is not bad. I think it's great to see him used and for once appreciate. I think the easiest, least intrusive way of nerfing him would be to give him one more cooldown on skill 3. And then see how it goes from there. Not nerf him to the ground, not take away his speed leader. So my opinion on the speed lead, removing the speed lead would be unfair to some players that don't have Samoth and Vanessa, etc. I just think one more cooldown on skill 3 is fair and see how it goes. He's actually counterable, which I already mentioned. Let's go on to the next one. Jin, which that's basically what I think we need for, as far as nerfs. Some people will disagree. Some people will think Nana needs a nerf again. Some people will think, if we nerf Nana anymore, then people are just going to be like, oh, buff Nana. And then, so we're going to get into that situation again because everyone was like, buff Nana. So Compto's buff Nana. They're like, hey, you start to battle with the stack. And then everyone's like, she's too OP. It's like, well, you said to buff her. They're listening to the community. We said to buff her. So there you go. So Jin, what a good skill Sensation was on paper. In battle, it did almost nothing. So I think that Sensation should be 100% strip chance. And then if they feel like it's too strong, maybe reduce the glancing hit chance to 50%. But I think that this, at least 100% strip chance with Jin. That's just my opinion on it. He's just very sad when you actually get to use him, even though like they had a bug on him and they fixed it, and he's still a very sad unit that doesn't do what you really ever want him to do. So I think that would just be the easiest way to fix him, because it's still gonna, like, things are still gonna resist either way. So then we have Brian. So my thoughts on Brian. I know I mentioned Brian before. Death Knights actually were addressed in this last patch, so Comptoas is aware they need something, either passive addition or the ability to use skill 3 to do something when the allies aren't dead. I'm talking about Brian specifically here. Passive addition, or the ability to do, like, if the allies aren't dead, do a shield or do something else. Example, skill 3 prevents death and adds shield for 20% HP if an ally takes lethal damage. That could be an interesting passive to do. Or go a different route and add strip to skill 2, making him a more effective, because he's got 116 base speed. So strip into an attack power break could be very good. Like if you have him on Swift, very good against Cleaves, because they're like, okay, do I ban the Brian, who's going to strip and then attack power break my team and possibly move before my Bastet or my Draco or something like that? So that could be one way to do it. I think the passive is the more logical way to do it, but either way, they could go 116 base speed is pretty ridiculous for a reviver. And then we have Lewis, which I've always said the same thing about Lewis has needed a buff for so long. Fire Dalsim, basically the same thing as we've mentioned before. Like, Lewis is exactly, I didn't even change this slide from the last time. I'm just be real with you guys. Fire Dalsim, the most niche unit ever, doesn't even work in the niche situation. He's good against Rika in theory, but there aren't a lot of Rika defenses currently. And when there are, he usually gets CC'd or doesn't work as intended. Like, if Rika does skill 3 and she stuns him, then what is he going to do? He's going to throw the things back. Or Rika and then immunity on their team. It's like, okay, then what does he do? Nothing. He's good against Dragons V12. In theory, however, the current Tricara meta, there's absolutely no reason to build a unit that requires skill ups and a slower team to execute where the dragon is actually attacking you and you have to throw the dots back. So, really, in theory, those are things that he could be useful for, but in practice, when you actually play around with him and actually use him, it's like, no. He needs to be different. Laurel and Cordelia, these just need to be better versions of, in my opinion, these just need to be better versions of what they already are. More damage output, more meaningful debuffs. Light and dark ones are fine. Fire could use something, but it's still more usable than water wind. Water winds are the ones that need to be addressed, the blade dancers. And also the Chun-Lis. So then we have the Undines, which I actually did add a little bit more to this. I actually gave some ideas, right? So most of these could use a buff and still not be anything crazy. Dark got an interesting buff, and wind is fine. So it's mostly light, fire, and water. So Adne, the fire one, could be a passive introduced that increases attack bar by X amount when attacked. So then she can cut in, she can heal, she can redistribute HP. Makes her a little bit more useful than what she is, basically giving her a set of nemesis, kind of. Then we have Akasha, the light one. Her skill 3 is a cleanse and invincibility for an ally. Should add immunity for 2 turns, 1 less cooldown, and some form of heal. It's only 1 turn. It's only a single target skill, right? So first skill, second skill is great for the light Undine, but third skill, it's really only like it's like Chloe, it's like Pontos, but it's a single target and it doesn't do immunity. So. And she also doesn't heal. She just does the invincibility. Then we have McCain, the water one. Revive skill 3 could passively activate when an ally falls and have 1 turn reduced cooldown. I think a lot of these revivers, making some sort of passive integration could be very strong with them. Then we have this. I just kept the same exact slide as the last time. Not going to pretend I did anything with this. Same slide. Gargoyles, basically the same slide as the last time. I still feel like the Gargoyles... I think that starting them off in Stone State would make them significantly better. I don't think it's that crazy. I mean, it might make them too much better, but someone mentioned to me, they actually emailed me. They were like, "Oh, you think that the Gargoyles are terrible, but I've been using the Fire one." I'm like, "I'm using the Fire one too. Fire one is actually it's pure damage. It destroys HP. I have some videos out on siege teams for the Fire one." Or some testing on the fire one or whatever it was. But it basically is pure damage and it destroys HP. And it's actually pretty decent if you're going for a slow, steady kind of bruiser and it's a 4-star. So it's actually not... The wind one and the fire one are actually usable. The other ones, I just feel like if they started the match in Stone State, that would actually make them meta, right? People would actually be using them. Then we have the Robos. They have potential, just needs more tweaking. Water doesn't do enough damage to justify exploding, and it's too easy to kill at 1 HP afterwards. Light is in a good spot. Light seems to be the one that's the most useful right now. Fire has very crazy potential, because fire basically counters violent runes, right? Counters violent runes, counters Ciara, Diana, things like that. But he needs to do more when he steals turns. So buffing Blade Crush, I mentioned this a little bit. I changed this, but I mentioned it a little bit in the last one. Buffing Blade Crush would be the easiest way to address Fire, Dark, and Wind, all needing buffs. Increasing strip chance by another 10%, because it's not even 100% chance. Well, it's a multi-hit. It's a triple hit. So, but it's a low chance to actually activate. And then adding some kind of debuff in there, so you can cut in, you can strip, and you can do something. Just anything. Glancing debuff, or silence, or something, right? could be very impactful. So I think that that's the best way to address the Robo situation. Then we have Camilla. I think I didn't change this slide at all since the last time. You already know my opinion on Camilla. There's just so many things that counter her. Some people disagree, but there's so many things that counter Camilla. That's just, it is what it is. This is basically the same thing as the last time. Christina is still, she lacks identity. She doesn't need to be a better version of what she is. She just needs more to be more like, what is she specifically? Is she a bruiser? That's like a turn 2 bruiser kind of thing. Then she needs to be for that situation a little bit, but she needs to be tailored for that situation a little bit better. Nora, same thing. They just need more focus. They need to know where they are, like where these units are supposed to be used. They need a clear identity. So those are basically very similar. I don't even know if I changed these slides at all, to be honest. So I don't want to really go over those too much. Aaliyah just needs the cleanse to be on par with Riley. Overbuff could be potentially dangerous. I think all she really needs is a cleanse. That's about it. Tomo and Daum, I don't know if that's how you pronounce that, Daumon. The Onmyouji were buffed, and actually I think water and wind are actually, I really like the water, well, I use the water one, I use the wind one. I have both of those on the Asia server account. The wind one is surprisingly effective. I think the people that have the wind one that don't have other wind bruisers, like turn 2 bruisers, I think that it could be very, because she cuts in, and then she does the suppression. She does the strip and suppression. So I think that she's actually a pretty decent unit currently. So I've been an avid user of Jaara recently for effectiveness, not as a meme. She has genuine use against turn cycle comps. Shizuka has always been pretty usable. Shizuka is the water one. I think it's too easy to overbuff Tomo and make her OP with her speed lead and skill combos. I think the most fair, modest buff would be just adding 1 debuff to her skill 3. That might actually be all she needs, whether it's a defense break or a silence or something like that. Just 1 debuff, because then she also she absorbs attack age on the harmful effects that are on the enemies. So she doesn't do anything herself aside from that. So I think she just needs 1 debuff. I think that could just make her useful, just having 1 debuff of any kind. Not any, one debuff of like I said, defense break or silence or something. For Daumon, I personally like her, but only for niche areas. Daumon is the dark one. 2 nice buffs for her can be adding a strip to skill, because I think she's a pretty decent siege unit. Strip to skill 3 Curse of Death, and also have it applied to the enemy that killed her could just make her more, because I mean it is an LD5. I don't know that it necessarily makes it, they could just test it out after that, see if those 2 buffs could be something that makes it meta. Then we have Liam. So Liam is Devilmon Liam. I don't use Liam. Unit that has usefulness in mainly TOA hell for some stages. It'd be great to see him tweak to have some usage in other areas of the game. All I've used him for was TOA hell. He was effective in TOA hell. That's about it. I haven't used him in, I mean, I've used him and tested him out in other areas, but I don't know why I would use him over something else. Like even some 3 stars and 4 stars are more effective in other areas than Liam is. Then we have Jaara, which a lot of these are things that we've mentioned before. Jaara, all it needs is a Perna-style revive passive, and it's all set. Just comes back from the dead, and then it's a Phoenix. Makes sense, right? It's already on the fire one. We have Trinity, the same thing we keep saying about Trinity every month. Change to attack type unit. Give it a reason to be picked over Samoth. Maybe Ragnarok can be triggered at the time of death, or can defense break or self-attack power buff before the big damage. Just some other options for buffing Trinity. Last time we didn't really explain give any buff examples, but these could be some buff examples for Trinity. We have Sun Zhang Lao. It was already buffed in the last patch. All it really needs is make it 100% activation rate. Since it's not the Summoner's War is already RNG. Like, you already don't know if it's going to activate even with 100% activation rate. You don't know if it's going to get resisted. So, make it 100% activation rate. It'll still fail. It'll just be 100% activate. It'll fail less. The way Craig Light Bison, take away the absorbed HP. So, he basically what he does, he speed buffs, he attack power buffs, and he increases the attack age of your team by 50%, which is a lot of stuff for a cleave team, especially like with Savannah, with Leia, the Light Blade Dancer, or Shimite, even things that do damage based on speed. You have a speed buff, you have an attack power buff, and you have attack bar boost. So that's pretty good. That's very good, actually. But I feel like but he's slow. That's the thing. So you have to kind of like, if you're going to outspeed anything, you have to bring something else with you. You have to bring like Camilla as well. You have to bring like something else, because you're not going to outspeed any defenses with Craig as your attack bar booster. So, take away the absorbed HP. I feel Comptro's thought 50% attack bar boost with attack power buff and speed buff was too OP, so they gave him a downside, but the downside is already his base speed, so he already has a downside. His downside can potentially be an upside if you're using attack plus portion to lost HP artifacts, but it's still more of a downside. He is an LD5 with low base speed, and I don't know if he necessarily needs a 50% team HP reduction as well considering he already has the low speed downside. Also, you can bring shield runes with him. That's another thing to mention. Celia, so like some of these that I mentioned before, we're just expounding a little bit on that we did mention last time. Just talking a little bit more about it. Celia, random beneficial effects on a random enemy. She has not stood the test of time, and then she also got nerfed, which I don't know that it was necessary. We've mentioned this before, but stripping a random beneficial effect on a random enemy, all beneficial effects on a random enemy at the very least. I mean, it's random anyway, so you can't even prepare for it. Skill 2 could also be unnerfed, so it applies to everyone. I really don't feel like it ever needed to be nerfed in the first place. It was a great unit back in the day. The meta has evolved to leave her behind, in addition to her being nerfed, since Comptro's wanted to nerf the water one, and they had the same skill too. It's really more of an LD4 at this point, because you don't know if she's actually going to do anything. We have Dorothy, so she's kind of similar to Christina. I was thinking more about this today. She's kind of in the same spot as Christina. She's better in longer matches, but she's an attacker. So she's a bruiser because she does more damage based on enemies having more destroyed HP. So I'm kind of curious what Dorothy owners feel about her. Like if you built Dorothy, I'm not saying if you have her 5-starred unawakened, you happen to magically get her, and then she's 5-starred unawakened sitting in storage with no runes and no sculpts. Don't comment if that's the situation. If you've actually used Dorothy and you have runes and you have sculpts on her and you've been testing her fairly frequently on arena offense or wherever, let me know your thoughts. Let Comptos know your thoughts in the comments. So I feel like there needs to be a little bit more feedback from Dorothy owners on what they think about her, because I did test her personally. I feel like it's better for them to chime in and give a little bit more information, because it's not a unit that's been in the game for a super long time. Then we have Thebae. He was buffed in last patch, so they're addressing him finally. Or actually, they have buffed him several times. It's not finally they're addressing him. They have been addressing him throughout the course of like the last year or 2 years even. So just some other options for some buffs for Thebae. And then the less loved 2A units. Hiva, the Wind Grim Reaper, we said the same thing last time. The Water Grim Reaper. Skill 3 actually having what I was thinking about this for Guild Siege. I was like, what if he just had one more turn of freeze? But then he's too easy to kill though. Like if you use him for offense, he's got low base speed. He's too easy to kill. So even as like a bruiser where you just build him tanky and he's got like this, because if you think about it, the Light Fairy is actually pretty decent for Guild Siege. He's got the two turn sleep with skill 3. So if he had he has a strip and a 1-turn freeze. If he had a 2-turn freeze and then all the continuous damage, that might be good, but he still has low base speed. He still is kind of squishy on the squishier side compared to the other ones. Like the Wind Grim Reaper has significantly higher base HP than the Water Grim Reaper. I think the Water Grim Reaper has like 9,200 something, and the Wind Grim Reaper has over 10,000. I don't remember the exact number, but something 10, 11,000. So I think that could be a situation where they could fairly easily make the Water Grim Reaper usable. Cheryl the Light Pixie, that's skill 2. What is the skill? It's a strip into a continuous damage. That's her amazing second awakened skill 2. And then she's a reviver. It's the same curse of the revivers. Moira the Wind High Elemental, close to being really interesting and useful because she does the team up, which increases attack bar and also is guaranteed critical hit. So could be buffed. Also, the skill 2 could be bugged. The skill 2 is not really anything crazy. It could be too meta if it's over buffed, but I think that definitely she's got a lot of room to be a very fun unit and have some potential meta teams with some kind of buff. And then the Water Vagabond, I think that either the Threshold or the Provoke Chance with skill 1 or possibly both could make him a pretty solid unit as far as like a provoking bruiser, but I just feel like he needs a little bit higher of an HP threshold to activate, and possibly definitely a higher provoke chance with skill 1, because it's a defense break and a provoke now. But anyway, that's it for this one. These are the units that I know. There's more units. There's always more units. People are gonna be like, oh, buff this unit that I have. I'm not saying other units don't need buffs. There's a lot of other units that need buffs, as well. I just think that these are the ones that I want to keep. These are the ones I want to keep pounding home, because we always keep pounding things. I don't know what I'm trying to say, guys. I really don't. But that's just my opinions. Leave it in the comments what you think that needs to be addressed by Com2uS, because we know that they do. I'm not saying they listen to me specifically, but they might be, like, read some of your guys' comments and be like, oh, this one person that's definitely not Bagel. This one person in the comments has a decent idea. Don't be like, this is a good idea. Well, never mind. Anyway, that's it for this. This is the end of the video. I'll see you as always in the next one.